So I am Leila Thomasone, and I'm a love stylist and relationship mentor. And I'm here with Sarah Gosney, who is a client of mine, former client, and one of our Limitless ladies in our group. And she just recently got engaged. So I can't wait to talk to you about that. And I know a lot of our members are like really excited to hear from you
Oh,
too.
good. I'm
Yeah,
excited
so
to share.
awesome. So what you were just saying was that, can you repeat what you said about like how you feel right now?
Yes, I've had a couple people ask me, if I'm on cloud nine or whatever, and I said that it really feels the same as our relationship did before he proposed, just because we've been talking about getting married. We've been together for about 3 months, about 2.5 months. We've been talking about it, and he was very clear and very certain that yes, he was going to marry me. So now it's just like, oh, the nervousness is gone, and the anticipation and like the slight freak out that I was having, knowing he was going to propose, is gone. But also, like, I've kind of been on cloud nine since we met, so you know, it's just
Right,
a
exactly.
continuation.
I totally get that. That makes total sense to me. Which is funny because yeah, I totally felt the same way. And
Oh
like,
yeah,
but you're thrilled, so you don't want to like downplay it.
yeah,
But
of
also, but
course.
also it just feels so natural. And like you said, it's like a release, which
Hmm.
is something I'm trying to tell single women. It's like you don't want to be a girlfriend necessarily if you don't have to, because it's so like anxiety provoking, like waiting for the proposal.
Yeah, for me,
So
I wasn't anxious until I knew when he was going to propose. It was weird. So, like, we had a discussion pretty early on that, like, I set my boundary of I want to be engaged by the end of the year. And he told me, like, God willing, it'll be a lot sooner than that. But then when I sort of knew exactly when he would do it, that's when I got nervous, which
oh,
makes
okay,
doesn't make a lot of sense, but you know.
yeah. Oh, I'm sure it does in some way, but we just haven't unpacked it yet.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So thank you so much for joining us to talk about this today. And like I said, so you're a client of mine, and so I gave you some questions that
Yes.
beforehand so we could talk about it. So could you tell everyone how you decided to work with me and like what was going on in your life at that point and your mindset and that kind of thing?
Yes. So Rachel Doggett told me about you. And I know that I'm not sure if she was your client or if you were just a friend. But yeah, so I guess mid-March broke up with a man I'd been with for 6.5 years in a relationship that I realized was very unhealthy and very toxic. And I had been in that relationship so long, just desperately wanting to get married and have kids, and just him, not even really doing a very good job of dangling that in front of me, just, occasionally being like, oh, maybe we will, and just all kinds of other really just unhealthy dynamics. And, it was like denial, 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 and then epiphany, and then it all just flooded in, basically within, you know, I guess at the beginning of March, I realized, wow, this is not how I want to be treated. He doesn't really love me. And within a week, I was broken up with him, and I just like all the realizations were flooding in just like en masse. And I just had this moment of, wow, like I write about love and relationships and like male female dynamics and traditional gender roles, and like I'm supposedly this intelligent young woman who has it together. How could I have let myself live with this for so long? And it really freaked me out. And I was like, I never want to repeat that again. And like I know I'm different than I was then, but I need to figure out why I got in that situation, what signs I ignored, and just how to never do that ever again. And I was just like, I knew I had to do something. And I also knew, I've had some experience with therapists, psychologists, and um, what's the other one? It doesn't matter. Social workers, that's the word I'm looking for. Just didn't really get a lot out of it. And I knew I needed someone like Leila who understood that I wanted a traditional gender dynamic, that I want to be a stay-at-home mom, that I want a man who is a man and treats me like a lady and not, you know, what's going on in the wider world. And so it just, also the fact that you're older than me was really helpful too. And, you're married now again. And, because, for something like this, you kind of want someone who's older and wiser. And, yeah, I just really just acutely realized I needed some help unpacking the disaster that was that relationship.
Thank you. Right. Yeah. And you mentioned therapy, and Molly says our video is fine, so that's good.
Oh,
You
good,
mentioned
good.
therapy, and therapy in general. It's like really, nothing against liberals or progressives, but it is really kind of swamped with that perspective. And so when you have something really clear in your mind as far as like your traditional gender roles, then it can be really hard to find someone that can sympathize or, even like, give credibility to what you
Right,
want or endorse it or validate it for you. So yeah, definitely. And then like you said, I got married, you can, I'm very open and I talk a lot in my sessions about my relationship. So that's something a lot of times you don't get in therapy too. They're not going to
right.
really, they don't, it's not about them. So they don't want to talk about it. So, okay, great. Thank you. And Ada's watching. Hi, everyone. Okay, and so then how did you manage to decide to make the commitment as far as like time, money, and energy? It's really an investment
It
to
is.
get in a program like this. So how did you decide that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I guess I knew I had to do something like this if I was gonna have any hope of a healthy relationship moving forward. I needed help. And yeah, I had some money left still from a gift my grandparents gave me, and at the time I didn't have um like a day job. I was doing some, you know, I was working with my dad in a business that I'm not doing. Is that true? Well, I guess I had stopped. Anyway, I didn't have like a day job to interfere. Didn't have a lot of money really, but I did have enough money to pay for it. And I just realized, this is an investment in my future. And, you know, this is a lot. This is what this money is for, to improve my life and help me make significant changes. So I just went with it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you did. I didn't even realize how quickly it changed too. You said March. I was thinking it was like January, February. So, yeah, so even if you're like scraping up your last few dollars, it's like everything can just be so different in just a few months.
I know it's still blowing my mind. I haven't fully realized that it's real and happening. I'm like 60% of the way there realizing it's all real, but it's been so fast. And the thing is too, it's not just been my relationship, it's been with my faith too. And meeting new friends as well. It's just been like a crazy, amazing whirlwind the last few months. But literally, I remember after I broke up with my ex, Ben, Rachel mentioned, yeah, in the Surrendered Single, Laura Doyle talks about this lady who broke up with her boyfriend and then met her future husband 3 weeks later. And I met Robert about a month after I broke up with Ben. So um, it really can shift radically very quickly.
Yeah, that's so true. And we have Samantha in the group too, who had a similar experience, left a bad relationship and met her future husband just a few weeks or maybe a month later, and then she's married here a year after.
Yes.
Um, and so what was I going to say about it happening all quickly? Oh, you had everything on your vision board, like you were saying in the group, that everything you envisioned just kind of materialized for you. And like I feel like I wonder if part of it like not hitting you is because it's kind of you just expected it. It just feels so natural and um it's like you planned it. So of course it's happening. I don't
I'm
know. Is
looking
it
at the
kind of
vision
like
board
that?
right now. Um, well, the thing is, like, before I went to Kansas, where I met Robert and where I discovered traditional Catholicism, I didn't have a clear picture of what I wanted. I knew I wanted to get married and have kids and be a stay-at-home mom. And I had had for like several years this vision in my mind of my wedding day. And it was in a nice church, and I had, a long veil and long hair. And I only could see my face. I couldn't see the man's face, which was interesting because I've had this vision even when I was in my other relationship. And the man was like somewhat taller than me, but I couldn't see his face. And Ben was not really taller than me. But so that was really the closest I got to having a clear image in my mind before I met him. I knew what I wanted in terms of like I wanted to be adored, which in my old relationship I just felt, worthless half the time, and, like a burden or something, and it wasn't good. And so when I met Robert, I had no expectations except, okay, these are my deal breakers, you know, and that's it. I didn't even know that I was going to start dating. I had said to myself, well, it seems really early. If someone asks me, I'll say yes, but I'm not going to actively pursue it. And thank God I had that mentality because opportunity arose. Um, but yeah, once I had that trip, I guess everything started to crystallize a little bit more. And I did, as soon as I got home, I made the vision board of, okay, here are my fitness goals. This is what I want in a relationship. I want to have these experiences with my friends and all that stuff. And um, yeah, the word that I put in the center of the vision board was magnetic, because what I wanted to really just embody was, okay, I don't want to force anything anymore. I was trying to force something for so long that didn't work. I just want to attract what I want. And of course, for me, what it needs to be said that what really changed this whole situation for me was back in February, me giving up and surrendering everything to God. Like, I was supposed to move back to West Virginia to be with Ben, and I had no job, no apartment, no plans. He wasn't helping me, and I just said, like, God, I give up. Like, your will be done. And like, that is an undercurrent for me for everything I do. It's like, I want this, but like, I also want to do your will. And I've just been given so many amazing gifts that I'm so grateful for.
That's so amazing. And yes, you're totally right about like forcing. It's like we end up in these situations because we're just trying to force and control it to all happen the way we want it to happen, which is like something people have a hard time with. It's like, I really want to have these goals. I really want to reach them. So how do you do that without controlling every step along the way? And you're right, surrendering is just, it's just the word that applies. And when you do find the right path, it feels so easy because you're not trying to control everything, and then it feels natural, and then you're like, yeah, of course I should be doing these things.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
that's awesome. It's so
Yeah, I think
exciting to
it's one of
hear.
those, yeah, thank you. It's one of those things that I think I didn't understand about the whole law of attraction type thing before. And a lot of people don't get, they think, okay, well, if I want something hard enough, it'll happen. It's like, well, maybe it wasn't supposed to happen. And it's not that you are doing it. You just have to have that mix of, okay, I strongly desire this, and I'm honest with myself about it, and I'm honest with those around me about it, but also, I surrender. And for me, of course, like I mentioned, my faith is a huge part of it. So I'm surrendering to God's will. But for me, that's made everything so far just been amazing. Like, I really did have a courtship with Robert that was, it's been very, like, very, very romantic, but also chaste. And like, that's something I didn't even realize was possible before. So
Yeah, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm just like thinking of all these things when you're talking, and then I keep listening, and then I forget what I was going to say. So, yeah, that's it's just so awesome. Okay, so I think I was. Oh, okay. I think what I was going to say is like, yeah, that's another concept that people have a hard time with, is that when you surrender, does that mean you're compromising? Does that mean you're lowering your standards and not actually going to have the type of courtship that you really dream of and that kind of thing? So it's hard to understand that actually raising your standards and letting go. It's so weird how that works.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. And I didn't necessarily. I mean, this whole thing has just exceeded anything I could have ever dreamed of. If I'm being honest, I had what I hoped for. I mentioned to you during our one of our sessions that I realized I wanted to wait until marriage to have sex with another man because I know the damage that can be done when you don't, and it just will make it a lot more special. And now I've added in the moral aspect of which adds another layer of urgency, but I just didn't know how that would be possible in the modern world. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to lower your standards. That's not what it's about. You can still desire what you desire and have your standards, but you also just have to simultaneously have it in your mind that this might not unfold the way that I expect, and there are forces beyond me that, you know, push the tide, and I need to go with the flow rather than fighting against it. So,
Yes. Yeah, and we invite so much more into our lives when we let go of controlling and the anxiety and the fear that drives the control. Oh my gosh, awesome. So, and that kind of ties in, like you said, it's hard to wrap your head around it, especially beforehand. And so, like, how would you explain that whole shift to someone who hasn't been through it, who's in the previous mindset um, of not understanding it, to like, how can you explain like taking that leap?
sure. I mean, and I know not all the ladies in this group are religious, but for me, it really was just pure surrender to God and pursuit of virtue. Because in my last relationship, I guess for the last couple years, I'd been contemplating conversion to Christianity, and I thought it would be Orthodox Christianity. Turns out it's traditional Catholicism. But during the last 6 months or so, maybe even longer of my relationship with Ben, I was really uncomfortable with the fact that we were sleeping together and we weren't married, and I brought it up with him, and the problem was not fixed. And for me, it was just a matter of, that wasn't the only reason I broke up with him, but I realized, okay, he's not going to lead us spiritually and toward virtue, and I want to take that path. So for me, it was about surrendering to God's will, which is not easy, and it's not always clear what his will is, and pursuing virtue. So for me, it wasn't even about you know finding a man or getting married. It was really a moment. This was back in February, a moment of me giving up and saying, I don't know. Clearly I'm like an idiot with my own life. Like, I know that's self-deprecating, but I had not been making good decisions, and guide me, please. And I just every day, pray for, to do God's will and to be filled with wisdom and to be led toward virtue. And that's really, I mean, I know that that might not make sense to everyone, but that's honestly how it happened for me, and that's the best way I can put it.
Well, and it definitely sounds like humility
Oh,
to me,
yes.
what you're saying. So maybe that's a component too. Thank
Absolutely.
you so
Yes.
much.
Yeah, just realizing yes, humility is a great great way of putting it.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing. So I think we talked about the result that you wanted and the vision that you had, and that it did kind of evolve over time, that you thought it might be Christian Orthodox, but then it ended up being this other thing. So you have to let go and go with the tide, like you said. Um, and so would you say that you got what you wanted out of the experience of um, the relationship mentoring and what you signed up for,
Yeah.
essentially?
I mean, the thing is, yeah, I mean, you definitely helped me unpack so much and have a new perspective on things that I couldn't have had on my own. And one thing that really stuck with me that I think is important for every lady looking for a better relationship to remember is it's not about feeling like you deserve something, it's about acting like you deserve something. Because to me, I I mean, I still don't really feel like I deserve any of this. I'm so grateful for all of it, but I'm like, this is beyond my wildest expectations. You know, the love letters, the just like, oh, it's been so amazing. And yeah, I still don't necessarily feel like I deserved it, but the point is I acted and set boundaries from the beginning like I did, and that's more important than like, oh yes, queen, like I deserve the world kind of thing, which if you have an attitude of I deserve the love that I want, that's great, but for me, especially coming from such a bad relationship like that, it was really hard to muster that emotional like confidence of I deserve this. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to fake it till I make it, I guess, and set boundaries and act like a lady. And it worked, you know, like, and that was something I would have never thought about unless you had given me that perspective. So yeah, I mean, it definitely everything has gone way better than expected, and you were there at the very beginning. I think I started my coaching with you a week or two just very quickly after, you know, the breakup. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful too. And it's like, yeah, I totally know what you're saying that the feeling like you deserve it, it 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 kind of comes along with the acting like you deserve it because
Right.
you have to have that discipline and that faith, and those are like really qualities that a man wants in his wife, is that she has faith to do things that she doesn't even understand, why, but she's also humble, and that kind of leads to the gratitude, I think, is that humility that like I can accept things even if I don't feel like I deserve them, and he needs to be able to give to you and have you accept that and everything. So
Absolutely.
it all
Yeah,
works
that's
together.
that's such a good point too, that like with kind of the more feminist mindset of, oh, I'm independent and don't need any help, we really forget, you know, how much men love providing and giving things to us and pampering us when they love us. And if you don't feel like you deserve something and you reject his gifts, you're going to drive him away. So, you know, even if, like, if Robert tells me I'm beautiful and I feel gross that day, I just say, like, thank you, or I'm so glad you think so, or something, you know. Because I don't want to reject his love and gifts. Even if I disagree, you know, who cares? Like I want him to feel good about giving to me and to feel good about showering me with love and affection. So I just, you know, am open to that and I receive it and I enjoy it, even if part of me is like, well, that's not true. It's like, shh, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that faith and confidence in him, that respect for him, it's like I kind of have to like take it at face value. Like
Mhm.
I don't really have any standing to, say um my opinion is more important than his or anything.
Right,
So
right. Especially if you are going for a traditional dynamic, it is part of, you know, for me, I'm not married yet, but it's part of, even though it seems weird, it's part of preparing to surrender or submit to your husband. Like, okay, that can even mean like not bickering with him when he tells you you're beautiful and you feel gross. Like, that's a miniature lesson in that. It's like, okay, well, you're right, you know?
definitely, definitely, it's all a lesson. And so would you mind telling us how he proposed?
Yes, it happened fairly quickly, actually. So the last time he was here, this was about 2 months ago, a month and a half. We went to a local park called Shelby Farms, and we scoped out the bench situation because with going with the traditional Catholic rules of dating, you're not really supposed to be alone together. So we definitely have spent a lot of time on park benches. And there's this one bench overlooking a hill and a lake at the park, which this is a massive park, and it's just this random off to the side area with just one little tree behind it, a crepe myrtle tree that shades it perfectly. That we spent, you know, a couple hours last time he was here, and it wasn't our first kiss, but it was the day after we had our first kiss, and so it was still like very new to be able to like hold hands and, you know, kiss and to like lay my head on his chest because we spent the first month of our relationship, you know, long distance. We hadn't even hugged before or kissed at all. So it was still like, I mean, it's still magical, but it was very much like, this is the perfect moment. So he took me back to that bench in that tree at Shelby Farms. And just like before I could even sit down, he popped down on one knee and said, I have a question for you. Will you marry me and be my wife? And, you know, presented the ring, and I said yes. And we hugged and kissed, and yeah, it was good.
Yay. Oh, that's so beautiful, so sweet. We have
Yeah.
a couple of comments. Salah said it's so sweet, and Molly said, "Congrats, you deserve it."
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you, ladies.
yeah, and thank you for sharing this with us. So, do you have a wedding date, or what are your next steps? What's next for you?
We don't have a date yet. We're hoping for next May, but since um, I decided, you know, shortly after my trip to Kansas to convert to Catholicism, that's a process too, and I have to get baptized before we get married, and that likely will be on Easter next year in April, of course. And then we're thinking of, you know, getting married in May, but all of this has to be approved by the priests and the all of that. So tentatively May, but we will see. And yes, I'm really looking forward to. I'm moving up to be with him next month, and we're gonna start pre-marriage classes, which I'm nerdily excited for, with the priest. And what else?
So
Yeah, I
cool.
haven't really started planning much yet because I there's still some moving parts. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, I have Derek's cousin who was in the wedding. She was like, they were the closest. Um, their families were really, really close growing up. And I think she's like 23 or something. And they they just got engaged, but like the venue they want is you have to reserve it like 2 years in advance. So
oh
like,
my gosh.
I mean, so there's always like something, right? But that's great. I mean, now that you're engaged and you can do all the planning and get everything lined up, and you said you're moving to where he lives. And would you mind, if I don't want to invade your privacy, but like saying how that came about, or how that's been
Sure.
set up for you?
Yeah, I mean, so Leila knows that I had sworn to never be in a long distance relationship ever again after my ex, because it was 2.5 years long distance with him and it was awful. But it's just kind of a little joke by God, I think, you know, like, you don't know what you need. So I, after the breakup, had gone to Kansas City to visit my best friend just to have some girl time. And I ended up getting invited by Rachel out to St. Mary's, Kansas, for Holy Week to meet her because we'd never met before. And that's how I ended up meeting Robert. I won't get into the story there because then we'll be here for quite a while longer. But yeah, so he lives out there, and it was completely an insane circumstance that we even met. And so, yeah, and I told him from the beginning that I didn't want to move until I was engaged, just because I had moved in the past for my boyfriend and it was not, didn't pan out. And he was okay with that. And so now, but even before he came, so we got engaged on Friday. And even before that, he started setting things up for me in St. Mary's to move there. So like I already have a place to live. He's helping me find a job and stuff. Like his dad and he have spent a couple weekends furnishing the apartment. Um, his dad owns the apartment, but still, you know, they'll keep the furniture, but like he's basically just making it super easy for me to move up there, which is a huge, huge relief. So yeah, it's just night and day different than what I had before, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. It's just such a huge difference between having to do it all yourself and actually being supported and having two people build the relationship
Yes.
together, which is really hard for a lot of women for some reason. It's like, oh, I'll just do everything I need to do, and not expect anything in return, and then they're the only ones working on the relationship. So
Yeah, that's where I was
yeah.
before. And I have to say, even besides besides the practical details of knowing where I'll live and that I'll have job prospects, it's just really nice to actually be wanted, to have him want me to be there and to be showing that with his actions and his words versus, you know, I know it's not good to compare, but it's kind of hard not to. With my ex, he acted like when I mentioned moving back, he was like, "Oh, that's interesting. So you're gonna get a job here or something?" He acted like I was talking about some acquaintance he met one time rather than his girlfriend of 6.5 years. So it's just really nice to have a man say, I will I will make it work for you no matter what, and I will help you and be there every step.
Yeah, and that's really what you need when you are going to have children together and have that kind of partnership. And thank you so much for sharing because you said like not wanting to compare, but your words might be really speaking to someone who's in that kind of situation and it's sounding familiar to them. And so that can be really, really helpful to a lot of people watching. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, thank you for talking to me.
Of course, my pleasure. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Um, just I have one parting comment. So this was something I tweeted the other day, not on my public Twitter account. I've abandoned that for now, but just ladies, if you are in a bad relationship, just be brave. Be brave enough to leave. Just be brave enough to say no, this is not what you deserve, and know that God, has a better plan for you. I mean, of course, we can't know what's in our future, but just don't. It takes some real courage to leave especially when you still feel like you do deserve that bad treatment, and just take a leap of faith and say, no love is better than this warped, awful, painful version of love. Just scrap it and know that you can only move up from there. So,
Thank you. Amen. And on that note, we'll say goodbye and thank you so much again.
yeah, thank you, Leila. Have a good day, and thanks for watching, ladies.
You too. Congratulations.
Thank you.